When we look back as missionaries, and I'm certainly our laity will say the same thing, I think I got more out of this than I gave. We realize that we're being transformed by the people to whom we go.
As church, we're called to witness to God's love. Micah talks about walking humbly with your God, but many times it's people of other cultures and other faiths who teach us what it means and challenge us as people to put this into practice and to move humbly.
If you look at the teaching of Jesus, it's a very inclusive message, but somehow we're not getting the message. There are a lot of times I think that we need to spend more time in evangelizing, but recognizing I have a need of being evangelized.
There are many lessons that the missionaries of Scarboro Missions have to pass on to the world, but perhaps none is so precious as what has been learned from those that the missionaries have traveled so far to serve. Sometimes the teachers are the poorest of the poor.
Only when I went to live in Peru and lived in the barrios did I realize that I learned more. But it's not only learning more, it's actually being evangelized by the poor, by the way people live, the way they reach out to you. And so I feel very strongly that yes, I was evangelized. Malnutrition was incredibly high. They were, baptizing children who were dying because they were dehydrated. Only about 50% of the people had work. There was no light. There was no running water. And so how do you celebrate the joy and the peace of Christmas? I remember we came together with some of the men and we began to reflect on the text. And they talked about the shepherds. They said the shepherds were poor people like ourselves. They were looked down on. But it was to them the angel appeared and announced the birth of the Savior. And I sat there and listened to them and I said, yeah, that's the essence of it. In my own life, it's when I've been very vulnerable, very weak, that God meets me when I'm vulnerable. And that's precisely what the experience is of God meeting the poor.
It is not always the poorest of the world who have taught Scarborough's missionaries. Sometimes the lesson comes from the way another faith teaches a truth already shared by the Catholic community, but in a new way that seems to expand its meaning.
I was invited into a Buddhist monastery, and I walked in and there was this huge statue of the Goddess of Mercy, about 30 feet high. And there were 4 or 5 hands on each side, and there was one big head and about 10 small heads on the top. And I looked at it and I thought, what the heck is this? So after I got outside, I asked a friend, well, what does it mean to you? And he said, well, do you see those hands? No matter how many people ask for help, there's always a hand left over to help you. And you see the heads and all the ears? No matter how many people are offering a prayer, the Goddess of Mercy has an ear left over to hear your prayer. And I sat there and just said, if that isn't a fabulous representation of God, I don't know what is.
Sometimes the missionaries learn as males and as priests something new from the sisters who work with the poor.
I went to visit our people in Thailand, and I went into a place called Pattaya. It's one of the scenes for the sex tourism. I just remember it being such a sordid scene, sordid and sad. But the next day I met Sister Joan. She was an Irish sister who had been there for about 30 years. She said, now I've gone to the point where I understand. I don't condone, but I'm beginning to understand. And we walked down the same stretch that I had walked alone the night before. And all of a sudden, that whole scene changed dramatically. Here was this woman who was non-judgmental, who reached out to these people, and the bar girls were coming in, hey sister, thanks for looking after my kids. Thanks for the daycare center that you run. Thanks for going down to visit my grandmother. And all of a sudden, because of the compassion of this woman, this gift that she had, this whole scene changed because of her presence.
And Scarborough's newest missionaries, men and women from the laity, seem inevitably to be surprised by what they have found when they went to help and ended up by being helped.
I had a group of health promoters that I ended up teaching. There was about 12 of them, Indigenous men and women, who came from their communities and wanted to learn health promotion, disease prevention, education surrounding anything to do with health. And this they would take back to their own communities to work within their own communities. They were also my teachers. They are people who have come from the smaller villages, who normally get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and milk their cows, work in the fields. And so for them to do this course was a commitment for them. And so they certainly taught me a lot. I've taken away from it that even in my own life today that, it's the small things that really count, and each moment is special.
It's a lesson Scarborough's priests have learned throughout their missionary lives, and it is one they wish to pass on now.
In any set of circumstances where we really enter into their lives and try to be with them, serving them in whatever way we can, but we also learn from them, we are transformed in the process as well. Because it's really like the Spirit of God bringing us together. Sometimes I like to refer to it as the dialogue of the Spirit. Where within you, God is moving your own heart. But when you meet up with people who are also being touched by the Spirit, and you come together in a circumstance of mission, great things happen. And you bring that back with you.